Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking all things reading around the world. If this is one of the first videos you've seen from me, then you should know that I am doing a challenge where I read a book from every single country in the world. And a couple of weeks ago, I already made a video where I started going through every letter of the alphabet, telling you the country and then the book that I've read for that country. And we are now back for part 2 of that video. So we're going this latter half of the alphabet. I'm going to go through every single country and tell you either what book I'm thinking about reading or what book I've already read for that. And we're going to do just a general update as well about this challenge, about how many different countries I've done, and what percent that looks like as well, seeing if it's changed from last time. And we're just going to talk all things reading around the world. If you're doing this challenge, I really hope this video is interesting to you and also maybe helpful to you, because I am trying to do this so that people, if they have no idea where to start with various different countries, they can come to this video and look at what I've read, see if I recommend it or not, or see if I'd recommend something else, because there's a few different countries that I've read multiple books from, so I can give you a recommendation, or see what I just wouldn't recommend as well, because that's also kind of helpful. Because a lot of this stuff that you look up online for challenges like these, it's not that much choice, especially for a lot of small countries. You often just have one semi-famous book and that's it. So I want to let you know other options maybe, and also stuff that I've read, stuff that I liked, stuff I didn't like. And I would also love comments as well on this video if you're doing this challenge especially, or even if you're not from, you know, the UK or the USA, then I'd love to know a book from your country that you'd maybe recommend to me. Even if I've already read from that country, I still want to know, because I love to know all different books that people recommend from around the world. So with that all being said, let's jump in and start this video. I'm going to have my Storygraph up somewhere on the screen and we're going to go through and I'm going to do, where did we actually leave off? That's a good question, because I need to find out which country we actually left off on and what is like halfway down the alphabet. But just to get this started though, this is what the Storygraph challenge looks like. This is, you can all join it if you want to. There's already 1,470 people who have joined this challenge and they've added almost 10,000 books, which is insane. So everyone can add books to this challenge, and it's a great resource as well to scroll through and see what other people have added for every different country to pick a book that you want to be reading from. So it's an amazing resource and I'm so grateful to everyone who does add books to this. I will say there is a lot of people have very different rules for this challenge. I personally have like a slightly stricter rule, in the sense that I want to be reading a book where the author is from that country or spent a significant portion of time in that country. And also the book is set in that country, or at least part of the, like a majority of the book is set in that country. I don't want to be reading books as much about people who have emigrated to elsewhere or displaced people. This is about trying to learn a lot about that country through its literature. So that's my personal rules. You can have whatever rules you like, but just know going in, these like 10,000 books, it's a lot looser of a kind of ruling. Like a lot of these aren't going to fit with my criteria. Also, I don't personally do non-fiction for this challenge because I like to be able to do ranking videos, and I think it's really fun to be able to like rank my favorites, and I wouldn't be able to rank anything non-fiction, especially if it's a memoir or something like that, because how can I rank that someone's actual experience against a novel? So that being said, join the Storygraph challenge. It's very fun, and it's an absolutely great resource. And we can see here that I have actually completed 85 different countries, which is kind of amazing. Maybe I'm going to try and push it and get it to 100 this year. That would be insane. And that means I've got to 42%. So it'd be quite fun if I did manage to get this to 50% by the end of the year. I'd be pretty pleased with that. I don't know how likely that's going to be with everything else that I'm trying to read. But obviously for the Reading Around the World challenge, we do read at least one country from a different country every single month. That's been really, really fun. And that's a really consistent way that I keep getting this number higher and higher. So for this month, September, we're currently reading from Greece, and we are reading, let me just grab it actually because I've got it right here. So we are currently reading this book for September. I say we're currently reading, I haven't actually started it yet, but this is Three Summers by Margarita Liberecki. And I'm really excited to read this one. I think it's about three sisters over 3 summers as they're growing up, like in a little town outside Athens, and I think it's going to be good. So next month, we're still currently voting for the country for next month, but it looks like it's either going to be Peru or Malaysia, but it's looking like it might be Peru. So please comment on this video if you've got Peruvian book suggestions. I would love some because I don't have a set idea of some options to give to the book club. So please, if you've ever read from any Peruvian authors, please comment them below. And if you're from Peru, first of all, hi, and second of all, please recommend me a book from Peru. Okay, so with all that being said, let's go down and find where I ended off this video. Okay, I think I ended it off at Lebanon. Let me just double check because this video was a little chaotic, actually, to be honest. Because I tried to do every book in one video, which I should have realised. You can't do 80 plus books in one video. Okay, so I finished L, which was I ended on Lebanon. So let's go back and scroll all the way down. And I think this is all in order now. Finally, it should be in the Storygraph should be in A to Z order. So I'm sorry if you were waiting for that to be done because it did take me a while to get that done. Okay, so we finished off right here at Lebanon where I was talking about the prophet. Let's have a look at some other L's. We have some options for Lesotho. We have Shaka. I've not heard much about this other than it just being recommended from various challenges like this. Liberia have no options actually, and then, oh god, it's gone right back up to the top. Let's just scroll all the way down. Oh, where were we? Libya, I have one option, which is this book. I don't know anything else about it other than I've got it in there recommended by someone at some point. Liechtenstein, no recommendations. Lithuania, I have 2 here. There's this one that I was really recommended, but I think that this one actually wouldn't count for my rules. I cannot remember what rule it's not counting for. Maybe it's not set in Lithuania, but I've heard it's a very good book, but I don't think it would fit for my rules. Like someone did tell me that once, and I can't remember which one who told me, and I also can't remember why it wouldn't fit. And the other option I have here is something called White Shroud. Now we've moved on to the M's. We have, for Madagascar, the recommendation, so I haven't read this yet, is Beyond the Rice Fields. And this is a historical fiction. Malawi don't have anything. And then Malaysia, like I said, this is one of the options for next month, for October. The one that I'm most intrigued to read from is this author, Cassandra Cow. This is, I think she does like very spooky books. There's this one that was quite famous, Nothing But Blackened Teeth. It came out a few years ago, and I've heard really good things about it. It's like a horror story, but I don't think much of them is set in Malaysia. But I believe this one is more set in Malaysia. So this could be a good option if we end up doing Malaysia, but I'm not sure we will. Next up, we've got Maldives. I've got the option is Dreams of My Heart. I don't know much about this, and I'm not sure I'm intrigued by the cover, but it's there as an option. And then Mali, I have a couple here, but none that are standing out. Malta, we have The Secret Life of Nana something. Marshall Islands, I have one option, but look, you can tell like 6 people have added books to this. Not many people have got options for Marshall Islands. Nothing there. And then we do have Mexico next. So let's talk about Mexico because I've read a lot of Mexican books. Look at all of these ones I've read. Let's click in and have a look. Firstly, we have Isabel Cañas, Vampires of El Norte. This is really fun. It was a very fun romantic gothic story. Not very scary, but historical vampires with actually quite scary vampires and like a very overdramatic love story that I quite enjoyed. And then we have some Silvia Moreno Garcia, who I adore. I love her writing. I love all of her different books because she writes in basically a brand new genre every time she writes a book, and it's insane how well she can just do any kind of book. It's really, really amazing. So I read Velvet Was the Night. It's probably my least favourite of hers, but still, 3.25. Stillborn. This is one of my favourite books. It's sitting on my favourite shelf behind me somewhere, or it should be. This one is truly excellent. It's about two women who are really good friends and their decision whether or not to have children. And then we have another Silvia Garcia. This one's much more fantasy, romance. We have The Five Wounds. I just looked into this book. I don't think it does count. I think maybe I added this from somebody else because this is set in New Mexico, which is the US, not Mexico. So I'm taking that off. But next up we have Reservoir Bitches. This one is one of the more recent reads that I've read for Mexico. This is short stories. They are amazing. They are brutal. They are unflinching, and I think this book is so much fun and also really hard hitting, and I really, really loved these short stories. This was nominated for the International Booker this year, and I really, really loved it. They are dark stories, but also they've got humour in them. They are funny, they're full of character, and that is all set in Mexico. We have another Silvia Moreno Garcia one. This one is a short story. Mexican Gothic, I think the first one I'd read from her, which I also loved. That's a historical fiction kind of Gothic one as well. And then these are some of the other ones that people have added. Just scanning through to see if I've read any of these. I need to remind myself that this video does take a long time if I talk about every single individual book. So anyway, let's move on. Mauritius, I have a few options, but I'd also be open to other suggestions, or tell me which one to read out of those. Next we have, which one have I read next? Mongolia I have not read from yet. Morocco I have not read from, but there's lots of suggestions from other people on there. Montenegro, Mozambique, Myanmar, Namibia. A few options for Nepal, and then the next one that I've read a few from is the Netherlands. I haven't read all of these. Let's edit this. Oh, of course, I need to add this book in here. I hadn't added that on, so let me just scan through, just having a look at what other people have added to see if I have read any of these other ones and if they count for my version of this challenge as well. Okay, I think out of these I've only read two. One I loved and one I hated. If you've already seen some of my videos on this, you know that I read this book for the Netherlands a while ago, and I absolutely hated reading it. It made my skin crawl. It's a very well written book. The only goal of this book is to make you feel extremely uncomfortable, and it succeeded. Yeah, that's all I can say about it. Go in, knowing that it's going to be extremely uncomfortable read, but I could actually see lots of people liking this. It's just I hated it. It's about a young girl who basically makes she asks God. She's worried that her dad's going to kill her pet rabbit. She says take my brother instead. She asks God, and then something tragic happens to her brother. In terms of other Dutch books that I did love, I need to round this up to a 5-star, I think. Maybe it's a 4.75. I don't know. I love The Safe Keep. This is a historical fiction romance story. It's literary. It is about a woman who lives all alone, and she's very happy living by herself. And one day her brother says, "Oh, my girlfriend needs to come and stay with you in your house just for a few weeks." And she moves in, and this girlfriend is the exact opposite, and they don't get on very well. And it's great. I love that. I love The Safe Keep. It's an amazing story. Next, what have we got? We've got Nicaragua. I've got a few options there. And then we also have New Zealand. Which one have I actually read from New Zealand? I have not read all of these. Let's have a little look. These are some options that I had. So I usually clean them up after I've actually read. This one is one I would like to read still, The Luminaries. I've heard amazing things, but maybe there's just one clue why I haven't read it. It's 832 pages. I will read it. I've actually owned this book. It's somewhere up here, so I will read it at some point. I can take it off this bit. But yeah, these are some other options that I've been given by other people. But the one I actually did read is Potiki by Patricia Grace. And this one I would really highly recommend. I wanted to read something from an Indigenous author, or at least about Indigenous culture in New Zealand, because I try to do that as well for as many countries as I can, and this was a really well recommended book that came to me. So I read Potiki, and it's basically about this community who are very upset basically that there's going to be like a new tourist development on their small island. Moving on, what have we got? Nigeria. There's so many options for Nigeria. You're really not going to be, you know, there's no wrong turn you could take. But I ended up reading, I didn't read this one, although I've heard really good things. Which ones have I read? I've read My Sister the Serial Killer. If you want a fun, more fast-paced story, this one is definitely for you. It's crime thriller. It's about a sister who's just going around cleaning up her sister's messes, who keeps accidentally, on purpose, killing her boyfriends. It's very fun and I really enjoyed it. I read this a while ago though. Next up, Purple Hibiscus. I'll just move on because I don't want to recommend this author. An author I would recommend is Akwaeke Emezi. They have written many books. I think the first one that I had read from them is Freshwater, and it's a very strange book. I would like to reread it actually because it's one of those ones where there's so much going on, but it's written in a really strange and interesting way. So I would say it's quite a challenging book, but worth it. I would like to reread it though. There's Freshwater. It's also really hard to even describe what this is about. But they've also written The Death of Vivek Oji. This is about a young boy, basically, who is very different from everyone around him in his Nigerian community. And then, what else have I read? Have I read any other Nigerian books? I have read Raybearer. I'm not sure that would count as being set in Nigeria. But if you're fancying some Nigerian-based fantasy, then it's very, very fun. Let's move back on to the list. We have North Korea, and I have actually read a book from North Korea. We did this as part of the book club, and I'm really glad we did because this was a really, really interesting book that we read. It's called The Accusation: Forbidden Stories from Inside North Korea, and it's by an author called Bandy, and this is apparently the only book published outside of North Korea from someone who is currently perhaps still living in North Korea. It was a manuscript that was basically smuggled across the borders, and the book itself like has a description of what happens, why people got their hands on this manuscript, and it's also really interesting because it is fictional stories. It's not a non-fiction account of someone who has left North Korea, and that's pretty rare. It's pretty hard to find, obviously, fictional novels set in North Korea by someone who is North Korean. So this one was really, really interesting to read, and they are very much like everyday stories about people just going about their lives as well, and I just found it absolutely fascinating, and the writing was really, really good. So we have a couple from Northern Ireland. I'm sure I've probably read other ones from Northern Ireland, but I actually haven't read this one. The one I was thinking about is Trespasses, which I didn't love that much. But I'm sure I've read other books from Northern Ireland. Let me just... Oh, I've definitely read that. Okay, there's Oscar Wilde. I'm not sure that would count for Northern Ireland. And is the Beasting Northern Irish? Beasting is not Northern Irish. Let's take that off. Anything else Northern Irish? This is just overly confusing, honestly. People just adding a lot of stuff. Let's see if there's anything else I've read down here. Hamnet, not based in Northern Ireland. Definitely a lot of Irish authors on there, not Northern Irish, but that's fine. Next up we have Norway. Let's have a look at what I've read for Norway. So many suggestions for Norway as well, so let me clean this up a little. I did not read this one. These are all still good suggestions, by the way. I would still suggest them to you to check out. I'm just cleaning up how it looks on my screen by the ones I've actually read. So the book I read for Norway is The Ice Palace. And this one was really interesting and I would definitely recommend it. This one was written in such a beautiful way, and I'm really, really glad that I read it for this country because not only is this a very well-known famous author, it really just felt different to other books that I'd read, even within like roughly the same geographical region. So it is a classic, and it's about these two young girls who basically strike up a friendship, and they are immediately very, very close friends. But then one of the young girls goes missing, and she goes missing inside of this frozen waterfall that all of the children have been calling the Ice Palace because it's this beautiful waterfall that is completely frozen. And it's basically about the other girl and like the effect that this has on her. Next up we have Oman, and I have read a book from Oman, and it is Celestial Bodies. This one, I wouldn't not recommend it, but I also wouldn't wholeheartedly recommend it. this is like a very, very popular choice for Oman. I think it was on the International Booker list a few years ago. It's not too long. I would say the blurb isn't quite accurate. It says it's about these three sisters or this like family, these women, and it's really not. It's about very much about the men and their lives. And you don't actually hear that much from these sisters themselves. It definitely was interesting, and I did learn a lot about Oman as a country. It's kind of set when Oman is going through a significant social change basically in the country, and it's set in this like small village. So I would recommend it, but like, you know, with some reservations basically. Next up we have Pakistan, and the book that I read for Pakistan I would definitely recommend. I did not read this one, let me get rid of it. But I did read Moth Smoke, and we read this as part of the book club, and I really, really enjoyed this one, so much more than I was thinking, and I actually really want to read more from this author, who I think he has some other famous books, but this was the one that is actually set in Pakistan. And basically you are following this man who is just having the worst time, you know. He's losing his job, his money's drying up, he's feeling pretty desperate. He kind of starts up this weird affair with one of his really good friends' wives, and you're just following him. But like the way this is written is really interesting. There's a whole very unique narrative structure. You're learning about this story, but then you as the reader are almost on the jury and you're judging the character, and like it's very, very interesting. You kind of get these different takes out from the story, and highly recommend this one. Not only was it like very fun and kind of quite tense and exciting read, but also had this like deeper like reflective nature to it. So would definitely recommend this one for Pakistan. This one I have read, but that is mainly set in the UK, and it's by I think it's just like mainly more of a UK book. Also personally don't recommend that one. I did not love it. I have read All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. I mean, this one you could count for Pakistan. Some of the story is based there, but most of the story is based in the US. And next up we have Palestine. Okay, we have good options here, and I have read Minor Detail. I didn't actually end up rating this one. It is, I think, like a 5-star read from me, but it feels really difficult to rate a book like this, and it was very raw when I was reading it as well. So this story is kind of set in 2 parts. The first part of this story, you're following a group of Israeli soldiers as they capture and rape and kill a young Palestinian woman. And then in the second half of the story, you're following, in more modern day, a Palestinian researcher who finds out this detail and becomes quite obsessed with like one fact about this case. And it's so well written, but it is really very emotionally devastating. I would highly recommend that you read this one. I really, really would. But be prepared that it is obviously very sad. I did read Enter Ghost. Maybe I'll add that one. That is about a woman returning to Palestine, and she is putting on a play, a Shakespearean play. And I really would recommend that one as well. It's actually not added here, but the one that I wanted to add and recommend to you is called, this is about a Palestinian refugee who was born in Kuwait. It's a really moving, really powerful story about her journey as she kind of finds her way back to Palestine. So yeah, I have just added that one on there as well. Let's carry on with the P's. Next up, let's just quickly look at Peru, because I'm thinking, you know, this might be what we're reading. Okay, maybe not this one, it's 400 pages. I don't usually do such a long book for the book club. But let's see some other options we've got for Peru. Just quickly, we'll have a little glance down. Oh, I've seen this around. Maybe I'll check that one out. I'm going to add that actually onto it as an option. What else have we got? Oh, I just don't know where to start. There's a ton on here actually. Ton of options. So please let me know down in the comments if you have a Peruvian option, because we need to do that for the book club. Philippines as well. A couple of options there, but nothing decided. And then let's have a look at Poland. What have we read for Poland? Oh yeah, Olga. My good old girl, Olga. I have just finished this book. Yay! If you've been watching my TBRs, you know. This one's been on there for a while. I'll wait to talk about it. I know you can tell. I know you can see the rating I gave it. I'm going to wait to talk about it in my wrap-up. Although I don't know when I'm going to do a wrap-up this month because I'm going to Japan, but we'll do it at some point. Maybe I'll film it in Japan. That'd be kind of fun. Okay, next up we have Swimming in the Dark. I wouldn't technically count this as for Poland. It is based in Poland, but I don't think the author is fully Polish. But I don't know. I'll get rid of that one off my list because I didn't end up reading it. And I'll get rid of that one. Still check these books out, obviously. But then we have another Olga that I love. This one is going to be my personal suggestion for this author. Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead. It says here that it's like a crime mystery, and it kind of is, but it's really about just this crazy old woman who lives out in the middle of nowhere. She just kind of drives around and looks after her neighbours' houses, like when they're not there for the winter. And she uncovers a kind of conspiracy / crime when her neighbour dies, and she feels like she's figuring stuff out. But she's also an insane old lady, and I love her so intensely. And yeah, that one's just such a good book, and I would highly recommend it. It's not the easiest read, but none of her books are the easiest read, but I do think 100% worth it. Have we read any others for Poland? Let's have a quick scan down. A lot of these are actually in Polish. Oh yeah, there's the Empyseum as well. Would also highly recommend that. It's like my next favourite of Olga Tokarczuk's books. I'm about to read this one. I think this is a new one. It's just being it's not new, it's obviously old, but it's going to be released in English, which would be fun. It means I can read it. Why is that there? The name's in the title, you know, the Neapolitan novels. That's not Polish. Books of Jacob. One day I'll read that, but that's like almost 100. I've heard really good things about this one as well. Basically just read from Olga for Poland. Just do it. You won't regret it. For Portugal, I read Blindness by Saramago. Would highly recommend this one. Definitely a really interesting read. A difficult read, especially just grammatically even. I'd actually really recommend the audiobook for this one because also it's kind of a fun way to experience this story because the characters themselves in this book all become blind. Like there's a white blindness that just kind of spreads really drastically throughout the population. And I think listening to the audiobook is an interesting way of reading this one. Would recommend. It's a dystopian, but I also would read definitely more Saramago. I've got another one of his books on my shelf, so I'm going to be reading All the Names. I think that's the one I got. Yeah. What have we got next? Romania. What have I read for Romania? Oh yeah, we did this for the book club recently. So the one I ended up reading is I'm an Old Commie by Dan Lungu. This one was really fun and really surprising actually. I'm really happy that we read this with the book club because it is a story about this woman who basically, her daughter calls her up and says like, Mum, make sure that you're not going to vote in the old Communist Party in this new election. And she's like, well, why not? I had a better life under communism. And it's basically her looking back on her life, all these different aspects of her life and kind of telling you stories. And her kind of coming to terms with a lot of what happened during that time. So it is reflective, but it's also, she's just like a very fun character to follow. But moving on, we have Russia. There's a ton of Russian classics, obviously. Some of the ones I've read, I have not read that one. Let's get rid of it. I have read Anna Karenina. I would recommend, even though it's a toughie. I have read Lolita. Would I recommend it? No. But am I glad I read it? Yes, in a weird way. I have not yet read Brothers Karamazov, but I have read some others like War and Peace and, you know, stuff like that. Pick your poison with Russia, with your Russian classic, or do a Russian modern novel. You know, I can't tell you what to do. Got a few options for Rwanda. And then what have we got? Samoa. We have done Samoa. We did this with the book club, and I wouldn't 100% recommend this one that we'd read. They Who Do Not Grieve. I think maybe I just didn't get it, but it was a very difficult book to read, I found. 3 kind of generations of women from these 2 different families, and it's about this tattoo. I didn't even read it that long ago, and I've kind of forgotten a lot about what this was about. I don't know. Not a lot of us liked it on the book club, to be honest. So what else have we got? Scotland. We've read a few from Scotland. The Maiden. I didn't like this one. It's historical fiction. And it was in the Women's Prize last year. I did not personally like it. I've not read Young Mungo, I have read Case Study and absolutely loved it. This would be my recommendation for Scotland. Because the other famous one that I've read is Shuggy Bane by Douglas Stewart, and I really didn't enjoy that one as well. I think that was just like one that was very, very overhyped for me. So I would read Case Study. If you like kind of twisty psychological books about, there's basically this woman who is going to this psychiatrist, and she believes that this psychiatrist convinced her sister to kill herself. So she's going and like trying to pretend to be a patient to figure out more about this guy. It's kind of very fun, it's crazy, it's dark, it's weird, and I really, really liked it. For Senegal, my strong recommendation is that you read So Long a Letter. This one is a really beautiful story. It's a classic, and it's basically about this woman whose husband has just died, but he basically had already started another family by the time he died, and she is then left in she has to isolate as part of her religion and culture after her husband has died for I think 40 days and 40 nights, and she's taking this time to reflect on her life, and she's writing this letter to her best friend. Serbia, Seychelles, Sierra Leone. We have done Sierra Leone. This one was another recent one, and it's The Memory of Love. I surprisingly really did like this one. This is basically set in Sierra Leone in the wake of the Civil War. So it's not during the Civil War, but you're following a few different characters after this has happened, although you kind of jump back and forward. And it is all about basically the psychological scars that are left on people and like entire populations after huge like things, like traumatic things that have happened. So I would really recommend this one. It was a very emotional book, but I really liked it. So for Singapore, surprisingly, I've only read one, and it is Crazy Rich Asians. And sometimes you just have to read a fun book for this challenge. There's so many historical books, there's so many books about war, there's so many books about devastating things, and sometimes when you're offered up something on a platter and it's like, hey, read this fun, silly rom-com, you're going to grab that with two hands. So I read Crazy Rich Asians for Singapore, and it was fun. It's one of my favourite rom-coms of recent times, and I really liked this, but I actually do prefer the movie. The movie is very, very strong. And this is quite a long book. That was mainly why I didn't love it nearly as much as the movie. And I'm usually, obviously, so into books instead of movies, but it's still fun. For Slovakia, we have read a book, and this was also one of the very first ones we read with the book club. I didn't get it, and I didn't like it. I can't even really tell you what this is about because it's very, very confusing story. I wonder what it even says that this is about. It's like about a woman and she leaves her husband, but then does she? Is he with her? Is that a different guy? I don't know. This one was really confusing. I just didn't get it. Maybe I just didn't get it. Next, what have I actually read? Let's do South Africa next. I think it's Corin Jennings. Would highly recommend this author for South Africa. Out of the two that I've read, I really enjoyed Crooked Seeds, although both of them are really good. Maybe I'd increase this rating actually, to be honest, but would highly recommend these for South Africa. Both of them have this like very dark undercurrent to the stories. And then also recently we did Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton, and we read this with the book club. This one was really interesting. It's a classic story, and it's basically about this Black Zulu pastor who goes to Johannesburg to try and find his son and his sister, and he gets kind of swept up in lots of the events that are happening in Johannesburg. And this is set just before apartheid happens in South Africa. It's a really, really interesting book, and I really enjoyed chatting with everyone about this one as well for South Africa. I do have a live show where we were talking about this one up on the channel, so if you want to check that out, that is available to you to watch. Next up, we've got South Korea. So many different books from South Korea. Just a selection here of the ones I've read. We have Winter in Sokcho. I liked it. I didn't love it, but lots of people do love this one, but wasn't maybe for me. One that I did really like is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. Really, really, really enjoyed this one, and it's for anyone who ever decided they want to become a tree one day. And then also we have Kim Jong-un, born 1982. This one sparked like a huge political feminist movement within South Korea at the time. It's so interesting. Even just the story around this book, and the book itself is really interesting as well. You're basically following the typical woman. So it's like a story written by statistics. It's like oh, like this many people would go on to secondary education, this many people would go and get a job, this many people would go and get married, and then you're following like the typical woman who would be born in like 1982. I just think it was really interesting and I really enjoyed that one. So moving on, we have Spain. I should probably have a check through and read and add all of the different Spanish books that I have read. We do have Shadow of the Wind, which I didn't love. I probably would reduce this star rating down. We also have Don Quixote. I always get told off how I say Quixote, so I'm like over enunciating it now. I actually did end up enjoying this one. It's incredibly long. It's the longest book I've ever read, probably. But it is fun. It's an adventure story, and I don't know. I do sometimes think I just had Stockholm Syndrome when I was reading it, because by the end of the book, you're like, well, I spent all that time with it. It must have been good. But it is funny and it is weird and it is really interesting to read something that is pitched as the first ever novel. Let's move on to Sri Lanka, of which I've read a couple of books. Let's see. We've got... I have not read that one. Let's get rid of it. But we have Passage to the North, which I liked, and then Seven Moons of Marley Almeida. I'd recommend Passage North more. Even though it's less my type of book, it's actually quite a slow story about this guy. He's basically travelling to the north of the country to attend a funeral. It's kind of reflecting on his life, his family, and the changes that have happened in Sri Lanka. And then there's Seven Moons of Marley Almeida. A lot of people would prefer this one. It's a lot more like funny. It's kind of like magical realism. It's a take on, Christmas Carol with Marley the Ghost, where this guy basically has 7 moons to kind of try and change things within the world as he's a ghost before he is like dead forever, basically. We also have Amma. I'm not sure if that's set enough in Sri Lanka for me to say. She is Sri Lankan, but grew up in New Zealand. I'm not sure that I would add that one. But maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, next up we do have Sudan. And the one I was going to talk about is Season of Migration to the North. And I've also read A Mouthful of Salt a bit more recently. Out of the two, I'd probably recommend Season of Migration to the North more. It just had more emotional depth for me, and I feel like I learnt a lot more about the country as well through that book. And it is a classic. It's a historical book. It's basically about this young man who comes away from like traveling abroad, and he comes back to his village, and there's this mysterious man in the village, and he's kind of figuring out the background of this man. And it's really interesting, so I did enjoy it. Next, we've got Sweden, and what have I read from Sweden? Oh yeah, there's Backman, of course. I actually wouldn't recommend Fredrik Backman. Like, he's not my favourite, that's why I've only read one of his books before. But he's such a, he's got so many fans. So I'm hesitant to tell you not to, but also because you probably will enjoy more than I would. Surely I've read something else Swedish. Oh, I've read this Backman actually. So I tell a lie, this one actually was really good. But it's really, really short. It's a short little story. But I would recommend that one. I just didn't maybe love A Man Called Ove. There's a ton of like crime and noir books from Sweden as well. Maybe that's why I haven't read that many, because I don't read that much crime books. Next up, Switzerland. Nothing. I don't have any options, so give me some options. Syria, I read As Long as Lemon Trees Grow. A very beautiful, very sad book. This is a young adult book. I just think I would have liked it better if it wasn't young adult. I don't know if that's like mean and disparaging to say. Kind of took away a little bit from me of the impact of the story, but it was still very good. Next up, what have we got? Thailand. This is one of the first ones I started like talking about with this challenge, and I'd still really recommend this one. This is The Blind Earthworm in the Labyrinth, and it's a very dreamlike kind of surreal story about these 2 girls and a boy. It's a very hard story to describe because I wouldn't even say that much happens. It's a lot more about how it's written, but would definitely recommend. I think I just like really got such a strong sense of like, this is kind of like how like the Thai language would be used, even though obviously it's translated, but really, really interesting. Okay, next we have Trinidad Tobago. The one I read is The Bread the Devil Need. And this one was just okay. It's kind of a crime, not really crime, maybe just like a darker story about this woman. And she is like basically having an affair with a man, and one day she sees someone gets shot outside her shop that she owns, and it kind of like leads her to reevaluate her life a little bit. So it was interesting, but like not my favourite. Turkey, I still want to read a couple of these for Turkey, but I will tell you which ones I've actually read. I've read The 40 Rules of Love by Elif Shafak. I'm just not the biggest fan of Elif Shafak, unfortunately. I just wish I was. The author that I do want to read from is Orhan Mapuk, but we didn't end up reading that we did this for the book club, and I have to be, guided by you guys, and no one else voted for that book, so we ended up reading Elif Shafak, which I was, fine with, but now I realise I just don't like her that much. Where else have we got up to? Okay, now we're on Uganda, and the book I read for Uganda is The First Woman. I really liked this one. This one was about this young girl who's grown up and she's never known who her mother was, but a lot of this story is really kind of trying to explain the type of like indigenous feminism that has like always been a part of Ugandan culture, and how it is different from the Western kind of imported idea of feminism. And I really liked it. It was like a nice story to read. A little bit long maybe, but I still really liked it. For Ukraine, I just have to shout out Endling, one of my new favourites that I've read, set in contemporary Ukraine. I just absolutely loved this one. And I don't want to tell you even what it's really about. Well, I'll tell you that it's just about a woman who is trying to conserve the life of these different snail species. She's travelling around the country in a trailer that she's converted into a lab, and she gets involved in these romance tours for earning some more money. And she meets some people there, and it's all very interesting, and that's all I'll say. Just definitely read that one. United States, what haven't I read? I'm joking, obviously there's tons, but here's a selection of just my books I've read in their review. Cash 22, 3 stars. Giovanni's Room, 2.75. Oh, sorry, that might be a bit controversial there. Little Women, 4. Maybe I'd increase that now. To Kill a Mockingbird, 4. Catcher in the Rye, 3. Maybe I'd increase that as well. Don't know. I feel like different about these like classic American novels now. Uruguay, I did end up reading this book, Pink Slime. Did I like it? No. Do I love the cover? Yes. I was just really disappointed in this one because it was billed as this dystopian story about this city that's being basically kind of like havoc is wreaked upon it from the environmental changes that are happening, and it's like this dystopian story about this woman who's trying to look after this young boy. But it really didn't hit like that. We have done Venezuela for the book club, and we read It Would Be Night in Caracas. This one was a very dark story. It's tagging it here as thriller. I would really not say it's a thriller dystopian. Although it is sad and emotional and tense, it's kind of about this woman, and the city is kind of collapsing around her, and she has to get out, but her mother's just died and she has to bury her mother, and then it's like very tense, but I'm just not sure I got the emotional hit at the end of this story. I'm recommending it with reservations. For Vietnam, I have I read The Mountains Sing. This one is good. This is a historical story about different generations in Vietnam. And it's very emotional, and it also starts out incredibly emotional. And I think for me, it started out too strong, almost, when it's telling you incredibly sad and devastating things that are happening to characters that you haven't even really been introduced to yet. So I was like going in like, oh my god, this is going to be really sad, but like really horrible things were happening. But I was like, well, I don't know who these people are yet, because it's like from the get-go. So that's just my reservation about that one. Wales, the one that you have to read, Howl's Moving Castle. These are so fun, and this is like definitely, if you love the movie, you should 100% read the book or listen to the book. I listened to it here. I would highly recommend them. They are slightly different, and it's different enough that it's very delightful, it's very fun, and you definitely get a lot out of these books as well, so can definitely recommend that. Zambia, haven't read anything from, and then Zimbabwe is the last country, and I have not read yet from this country, but I think I will do Nervous Conditions. I've heard a lot of good things about this one. But basically that, I think, is the A to Z of every book that I've read so far for my Reading Around the World challenge, and the books that I am looking forward to soon reading. Please, please, please write in the comments some book suggestions for some of the countries that I don't have things for. Tell me your reactions to my reviews for the other books as well. I want to say a huge, huge thank you to my Patreons. Thank you guys so much for being here, for supporting me and supporting this channel. You guys make this the best place to be on the internet. If you want to join the book club, it's always linked in the description. It's over on Fable. It's free to join, but we do all the voting over on Patreon. So now's a good time to join the Patreon if you want to get voting rights. It's the lowest tier perk, so you can just get that and then have voting rights on the country and then the book that we're doing. And we'll do a live show at the end of October for this current book that we're going to be doing, for the Greek book. I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much for staying to the end and watching this whole video, my A to Z of all the countries I've been doing for Reading Around the World. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you again soon. Bye!